Yes, this is John G. Sutton, and here we are at Tales from the Jails. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the abuse of prisoners and how they went about it in certain unique ways at prisons such as Strangeways, where I worked, and the Scrubs. One incident I'll tell you at Strangeways. It was lunchtime. That's around about between half past 11 and 12 o'clock lunchtime, and I was on B Wing. And as I was on B Wing, there was a tremendous banging and clattering from this cell, and the senior officer said to me, "No, do not open that cell." It was lunchtime, everybody else had gone down, but there was one particular cell that was locked up. The inmate inside had not been opened to go and get his meal, and he was banging on the door. So I said to the senior officer, I said, "But if he hasn't had his meal, I'd better open him up and get him fed. No, he said he's on a food-free diet." So I said to him, "What's the idea of that?" He said, "Listen," he said, "I'm in charge of this wing." He said, "And if I say he stays inside, he stays inside." So whatever this inmate had done, he wasn't getting fed, didn't get any food. So that was one way that that particular officer had of dealing with somebody who crossed his path. He put them on a food-free diet. And the same senior officer, like a sergeant, a one pip, uh, he he had a way of dealing with other inmates that got on his. He had a particular prisoner that he used to give treats to. I don't know, cigarettes or whatever, and they acted as like his personal bouncer. They used to go around and thump people. I was on duty one lunchtime, and I saw this prisoner come out and go into off a landing where this senior officer was, onto another landing, and everything else was locked down. And I don't know how this other inmate had managed to. He must have arranged for him to be released out of his cell. And this particular prisoner followed the guy into the recess, and you heard this boom, boom, and the guy came out. Yeah, so the victim had been seriously beaten in the recess by this prisoner who was being used as a thug by the staff, by this particular member of staff. It was a rather. Well, I mean, how do you complain? You've been attacked by a prisoner. Yeah, of course you have. That's what happens in prison. Except it was promoted by the staff. Uh, Another rather nasty psychological trick that they played at Strangeways was the missing mail. Yeah. Now the way that the mail was delivered was uh, when it came down from the censor's office, usually round about lunchtime. It was distributed round the cells by the staff, and one of the really disgraceful tricks was to remove the letter and put the envelope on the prisoner's bed, so that when he came back from getting his lunch, there was the envelope on his bed, but the contents, the actual letter itself, had been removed, ripped into shreds, and thrown away. That's Can you imagine how that plays on a person's mind? Another thing at Strangeways that I found, I was I've told you previously about me being in charge of the security detail to go when they were revamping the tower, pointing it and all that. Well, the tower, that's the ventilation tower that you can see at the front of Strangeways. If you look at it, big tower, it's about 300 foot high, perhaps 250 foot, something like that. Yeah, you look at that. It goes right down, and it ends just near the what was at the time the kitchens, and it's you access it through a separate lock, a locked big metal gate. So you go in there, and that's the base of the tower, which is obviously sunk into the earth. But right at the base of the tower, there's like a very dark section. You look up, you can see the light at the top of the tower and the spiral staircase that goes round. But if you went, when I went in, I went to the bottom of the tower and looked down, not up, looked down, and scattered in the at the base of the tower was mounds and piles of mail. Letters that had been sent in and just discarded. They had never actually been delivered to the inmates. They'd just thrown at the bottom of the of the pit underneath Strangeways Tower. They may still be there, I don't know, but they were certainly there in 1979, 1980 when I was there. I was working at the Scrubs, seriously, working at the Scrubs in the Census Unit at around about Christmas of 1975. And the mail there was absolutely mailbags full of it. And the officer in charge of this said, "We're never going to get through all this." It was quickly approaching Christmas Day, and there were stacks of it. It was all Christmas cards and all that. He said, "I've got an idea. I know how to get rid of all this." So he got a big truck, a hand-drawn truck, open back truck, 3 sacks of mail on the truck, took it round with an inmate pulling it to the incinerator and burnt it. There was a big incinerator at the Scrubs near the bathhouse, and he burnt all the Christmas cards. I mean, all the people who'd sent these in, to prisoners that were stuck there in the prison for Christmas. And what did this bloke do? Burnt all the Christmas cards, eh? Father Christmas in reverse. The other thing, it's commonly talked about the racial abuse in the prisons. I'll tell you something, at the Scrubs when I worked there in 75, 76, there was a great deal of prejudice, but it was not specifically from the staff to inmates. It was the other way around. It was the West Indians, the people from Jamaica and all that, who used to call, well, they used to call me anyway. I didn't understand it at the time. They called me what's it called, bomberclot or rasclot or whatever. I don't know what it means. It's some insult, but it was so, only they understood what they were saying. It didn't mean anything to me. I said to him, "What do you mean? Rasclot, bumberclot, I mean, I don't know what you mean." I didn't know what they meant. It was supposed to be an insult, but if you don't understand, it's hardly an insult, is it? Not to me, anyway. But, I wasn't racially prejudiced. A prisoner's a prisoner. Cell's a cell. In you go. Shut the door. No big deal to me. There were, of course, staff who were members of, previously discussed, members of the National Front, and they wore a little Union Jack badge on their lapel, and they used to show it to the inmates so they knew they were getting nothing. If they were black or Indian or whatever it was, they were not getting anything off that particular member of staff. I think it was eventually outlawed. There was a number of complaints raised against staff for actually open racism and advertising it with this National Front badge that they wore. Quite ridiculous, really. A person's a person, in my opinion, and I don't call them names, but they certainly did resort to calling me names. But I think it was only on a friendly, jokey kind of basis. So those are just a few of the ways that prisoners were intimidated and bullied Of course, the standard practice was if a member of staff really did find that an inmate was behaving in an obnoxious, aggressive manner, then they'd just push them to the point where they kicked off. Then a team would come in, grab them, snatch them, bundle them down into D1, get them to an empty cell, rip all the clothes off and throw them in. That's the way it was. And that's another tale from the jail.